beautiful souls. Today's video is about compulsions and obsessive thinking or obsessive actions. So, a lot of people, I want to explain this. A lot of people have obsessive thinking, especially if you're an overthinker. You have a tendency to just kind of go into this. Now, this video is not necessarily about that because the overthinkers, I have a lot of videos on that. I'll link this to the end. There's a lot of overthinking videos, your ways to rewire your brain, do all that. But sometimes the overthinking goes into compulsions. So we believe that all these overthinking are going to create something really negative in our life, and it goes into the kind of obsessive compulsive behavior. So we have these really dark, weird, scary thoughts that sometimes go into actions. So our actions start getting affected, like some people that are scared of bacteria, or you're scared of if any bacteria touches you, something bad's going to happen. It is a very scary world. Some people have problems with eating. They can't eat properly. They can't eat solids. They think they're going to choke. Now, there are natural fears that we have, okay? Fears of spiders and fears of snakes, or fear of choking and being grossed out by bacteria and all that. There is a healthy way of thinking about those things. But a lot of people have in their mind that it's goes into the unhealthy parts. So for example, if our regular brain or even the overthinker brain will be saying, oh, wait a minute, I should lock my door. I should lock the front door, because if I don't lock the door, wait a minute, did I lock the door? You know, you go to bed and you're like, I don't know if I locked the door. Yeah, I think I did. No, maybe I didn't. So we go down. This is a normal fear for most people. You don't want somebody to come in your house at night with all the shows and the movies we watch. We don't want that to happen. So you go downstairs, make sure it's locked, secure it. All right, I know it's locked. You go to bed. If an hour passes, it's possible that you go, wait, did I? Yeah, I did. The thing when you start to become in the unhealthy obsessive thinking, and it becomes obsessive, and it's that fine line, is that there's something in your mind that is looping. It's like a loop. Like you'll go and check the door. The door is locked. You know it's locked. You went to check it. You'll go back to bed. And you know how, like in our regular minds, we have like a check mark. Like, okay, check, I did it. Is the stove off? Because I could create a fire in my house. Yeah, check, I did it. I went to check. And when it starts to get unhealthy is when that little check mark doesn't happen. So it creates this loop, this continuous loop. And this is why when people start the same, let's say you're scared to choke on food. If you eat something and you're like, wait, I can't eat this really solid because I could choke. Maybe something happened to you, or you witnessed something. You could have even just seen a show of somebody choking and you got scared. Now, what happens is when it becomes unhealthy is when we start taking action. So not just thinking about it and going, hey, wait a minute, I can't do the check mark. The check mark can't be done. I'm now going into the loop. And this is where it becomes obsessive. It becomes a compulsion that you have to go down, check the door. You have to go down and check the oven and check your stove. And everything that you're doing becomes excessive. So let's say you're eating, you're like, I don't want to choke. You're now not going to eat anything that can make you choke. So you're stuck on solids. If you're scared of bacteria, which is a very normal, like pretty much all of us are grossed out if like somebody's like picking their nose, scratching their ear inside, picking their teeth, and hey, how's it going? Ugh. You know, it's not like we kind of like that automatic human feeling is that we're kind of grossed out by bacterias and things like this, right? Some people not. They're excluded, but most of us are kind of like, ugh. Well, when it becomes an obsession and goes into the unhealthy parts, is that you now think that you can die just from somebody like, or this is extremely like everything in you, the fight or flight response goes up. So I'll give you guys an example of the brainwaves of what's happening, when it gets unhealthy. So when you're on the low brainwave, it's like, let's say you're sleeping, you're on delta. Okay, you wake up, you're kind of like tired before your coffee. You're on theta. Okay, you're very, and then usually automatically to function day to day, we go on beta brainwaves. So low to mid beta. So right now you guys may be on mid beta. Mid beta is like paying attention to what I'm saying. Like you may be taking down notes if I was going to tell you that I was going to quiz you later on this, you would write down, you'd be a little more attentive. So your brain waves go up because you're a little more attentive. Now, if you go on high beta brain waves, usually the high beta is when your anxiety, it's the fight or flight response is triggered in our brain. So a lot of people, when you have unhealthy thoughts, the trigger in your brain goes straight to high beta. So although I believe 100% that therapy, psychology, even medication for some is needed, if you want help, or if you know somebody, and you could tag them in the video or send them this video, if they want help organically included with the therapy and the psychology and the medication, if you're taking it, there are things that can help this, that could bonus. And I have somebody very close to me personally that has been practicing this for years, and it has completely changed her life, altered everything in her mind, and she went from complete panic attacks, ending up in the hospital of anxiety, to within 5 minutes getting rid of the unhealthy thought. 5 minutes, and the brain waves go down. So the first step, okay, is in every aspect, whatever you are, the first step is always to be aware. Okay, being aware is it's the biggest step. It's, you know how they talk about, since I'm young, we've been talking about alcohol as the first step is, you know, admitting you're an alcoholic, admitting that there's an issue that is unhealthy, that you're like, wait a minute, I know bacteria is not dangerous and it's not that bad, but I really am affected by this. I know that checking the door 12 times is not normal. So just knowing, just being aware is such a huge step to enlightenment, to healing yourself, to getting to that place of inner peace. But you have to take the next step. You can't just be aware. If you're aware and you're still doing the actions, then you're still stuck in the loop. Okay, you're like, yeah, now you're shaming yourself because you're like, oh my God, I'm doing something that's so bad. So number one, I want you to also understand that this is very common. You are not alone in this. It is so common, and it's not talked about. It is not talked about at all. A lot of people are really scared to talk about this because they feel shame, because they're like, oh my God, if they knew what was going on in my head, they wouldn't. But a lot of people are living with this. A lot of people are feeling this. So you are not alone. Please know that you are not alone. And it's okay that this is something that either is genetically happening to you or circumstances in your life have led to this. It is possible to feel good and to live a really fruitful, organic, healthy life, okay? So when it comes to, you have to ask your doctor this, but when it comes to supplements, a lot of people are either if you're eating really well, that's not an issue, but if you're struggling with certain things and certain foods and you're being picky and obsessive over it, I strongly suggest multivitamins daily and something called magnesium citrate. I personally like the brand Calm. They have these vegan gummies and these things. Ask your doctor first, make sure it's okay with them. But what happens is when you're feeling the high anxiety, high stress, the high beta, when you take this before bed, it can help you sleep. It can help the compulsions and the obsessions at night, because sometimes throughout the day we've carried this burden all day of the bacteria and the this and the that and other people and the this, and it becomes obsessive, and it's almost at night it hits stronger. So it's hard to sleep because, you know, you have racing thoughts. So what happens is this will really help regulate everything in your body. You can Google it, and you can ask your doctor about it. The second thing that I think is actually super important is reading. Now, the good part about being obsessive and compulsive on something is once you create a habit, you kind of get stuck to it. So what is better than reading? And not reading like fantasy, which is fine to read fantasy, but if you create a ritual for yourself and you become maybe obsessive of saying, I'm going to read 3 pages or 5 pages or 1 page, whatever, every night before bed, and you start reading about compulsions, start reading about mental health, start reading about self-love, start reading about the dark side of the light chasers, the shadow work, and understanding that everybody has dark thoughts. We all have these things that we don't suppress. It's not good to suppress them, especially when you have obsessions and compulsions. When you learn to suppress, your compulsions will become heightened. And you may have triggers, reading books on triggers, stuff like that. If you can do it, like say, hey, I'm going to reserve about 10 minutes every night before bed to either watch a video, if you're not a reader, watch a video that's going to help my mind, or read a book that's going to help my mind. And getting into that and creating that ritual will put your mind at ease, because you know, number one, you're not alone. Number two, there are ways to help your mind, help your feelings. The second thing I would strongly suggest is meditation. And being obsessive and compulsive about meditation, to me, is great. I know there must be a downfall somewhere. I can't see it right now, but unless you're meditating all day long, then, whatever. But if you create a certain time for you that you meditate every night, and meditating is getting it. Now, it may be very hard because of all these thoughts and everything. That's fine. That's fine. Don't expect yourself to have no thoughts right away, because actually pretty much everybody has that hard time. But if you're getting in and centering yourself and understanding that instead of medication, or added to your medication, you're doing meditation, which, side note, one letter, that's different. Okay, medication, meditation. So all you're doing is adding that to whatever you're doing. And you're sitting there and you'll notice this immense sense of peace. Some people have visions of things and it's such a good feeling in you, and it can help with blood pressure, and it can help with obsessions, and it can help all that. The third most important thing, I think, is finding ways to work on your daily thoughts. And there's two parts to this. Why I talk about daily thoughts is that being obsessive oftentimes has to do with the now and the future, kind of like getting scared of the future, of what's going to happen, what this may happen, and it's excessive. Okay, it's a really excessive, oh my God, this is going to happen. I'm going to predict this. I'm very good at predicting. This may happen. And then it gets, something bad's going to happen if I don't have this amount of things and you get very into it. So what happens is bringing yourself back to the now is extremely important. Some people use tapping, and I do not suggest tapping for if you have obsessive or compulsions, stuff like that. I don't suggest tapping. I do suggest mindful meditation. It's not necessarily meditating per se. It's mindfulness means to use your senses. So all the senses, the five senses, there's more senses, but we're going to use the basic five senses. So you have to find the one that's best for you. For me, for example, the one I love, because I think everybody should practice this, not just for obsession, everybody should. I love listening. I will stop and listen. And I'm talking about full potential senses, like not just listening to me talking right now, to things that are the minute details, the subtle sounds. So not just the wind that you hear blowing, not just the music, like a bird or the background sounds. And if you're eating, let's say, an apple, and you take a bite of it, feel the crunch. Every bite you feel the crunch of it. If you're touching the apple, feel all the bones. Or you grab it like an orange, let's say, you touch and you can feel the orange. Use your senses to the tiniest detail, okay? And what happens is bring you back to the now, because you're not thinking about tomorrow, not thinking about unlocking the door or the bacteria or not eating properly. You're just living right now. Now you have to understand, doing this multiple times a day, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are creating new synaptic connections in your brain to go back to the now. When you start doing this every day, few times a day, start once and then more, what happens is that you're going to want to do this on a high stress moment. Let's say your trigger is exams. You're trying to do exams or a big meeting at work or whatever it is, okay? And you have a trigger. When you're in that trigger and you practice this mindfulness, your brain that usually goes to high beta is like, oh, we're not doing that now? Sorry. They're saying, oh, we're not doing that right now? No, we're calming down. And then the next time you go through it. So the more you do this year after year, eventually when you're going to reach a very stressful moment where you're going to notice your anxiety and everything is arising, you're going to go, your brain will go, no, 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 we don't do that anymore. We calm down. We bring back to the now. So you start looking. And when you look at things, by the way, let's say you're looking at a tree, or if you're in your class, you look at the wall and you just describe the wall. Don't just look at it. Actually describe. Let's say I'm looking at this. Okay, there's a little dark spot. How many petals? 1, 2, 3, 4. You count the petals. You count the details of things, and you're coming back to the now, and your brain will automatically get used to doing that. Now, it's not overnight. It's going to happen over time, but this is super important. I suggest any book or anything of Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, or Dr. Bruce Lipton. So Dr. Bruce Lipton has studied epigenetics, and he explains how we can heal the mind, heal the body. Dr. Joe Dispenza is a scientist. He explains detail. You can find him on YouTube. He has courses online, like life-changing courses that have helped personally. The person that I know very close to me changed her life completely, and she will not go to bed without reading a book of like a couple of pages at least, and she says it blows her mind. She's like, wow, this is so cool that I can do this. And she'll completely switch and bring herself back and completely self-aware and just, okay, I will always be like this. I will always have these thoughts. It's okay. I will, but I can choose the path now that I want to take after the initial feeling. Finally, the best thing that is like really literally changing your mind is if you have a hard time at night or throughout the day, if you notice your anxiety is higher, I strongly suggest you go on YouTube and find frequencies and vibrations and tones that are very low. So you would Google either delta or theta. So far theta is very good. So theta is like the meditative tone. And these are like binaural beats and frequency sounds, and you just solfeggio. There's all sorts of different, and it's basically these subtle sounds you put in your earphones, and it's calming you down. And it's brain waves, it's reducing the brain. It's not going from high beta anxiety to like a low beta alert, but still, do you know what I mean? And then theta, if you're able to, if you're in a position, let's say at night before bed, you want to go into sleep, this is life-changing. So I hope these tips helped you. I do not suggest doing this alone without a therapist or a psychologist or anybody that can help you. And if you're on medication, don't just start this and then get off your medication. This should be included together. This should just be incorporated with it, because honestly, this is, personally, I've seen not just one, but quite a few people completely change their reality and feel so much better. And our goal here is to find that inner peace. Find that daily happiness, that you don't have to live in anxiety and compulsions and these toxic thoughts that are completely consuming you all day long. You can have a very loving, happy, fruitful life. Okay, so love you. If you have any questions that I did not address in this video, please comment. If you like this video, and if you didn't already, don't forget to subscribe. Love you guys.